Arigato gozaimasu, ohayo gozaimasu, watashi wa David desu ka. So we're all Japanese now, all Chinese people. At least if you're from the northern three provinces, yeah, you're Japanese officially. So the CCP admitted to it. What happened recently was that the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Mao Ning, in one of the press conferences, says that the San Francisco Treaty, where Japan, pertaining to China, but also other countries, but specifically with China, they signed the agreement to officially give back the island of Taiwan, the island of Penghu, and also Manchuria. The CCP now claims it's invalid. So that document that gave back some of China's territories is allegedly invalid. Okay, so basically the CCP argues that the document was signed alienating countries like Russia and China during the Second World War, and they did so without consulting them in this San Francisco Treaty. Therefore, it is invalid. But then that brings a big question as to, so who actually still owns Taiwan? Well, it's either the Republic of China or it's Japan. And if you are like me, where your ancestral home was in the northern three provinces in Dongbei, or northeastern China, that was where Manchuria was, then technically you're still Japanese because the CCP says that the document that made you go back to China is invalid. So like myself, I'm now Japanese. I should be learning Japanese. I should move to Japan. So that's kind of crazy. But if you actually look at here's the real document I pulled from the United Nations website, Chapter 2, Article 2, this would be Article 2B, I guess. Japan renounces all right, title, and claim to Formosa and Pescadores, which is island of Taiwan and Penghu, but they also renounce the islands of, if I can get this highlighted, that is, all rights to the titles and claims to the Spratly Islands and to the Paracel Islands. In other words, their claims of the South China Sea, the 9-dash line, the 10-dash line, whatever they want to say, is also invalid, which essentially means now countries in the south, around the southeast part of, I guess, the ocean, you wouldn't call it South China Sea anymore because it's not part of China, the South Sea or the Philippine Sea or the Vietnamese Sea, whatever you want to call it, right, can just go around and get back their legal claims, the sovereignty of those islands to from China, and all those illegal buildups of militarizing those little islands, you should also be able to destroy those as well. So they essentially just shot themselves in the foot with this claim, right? There's also other things, like for example, in terms of so if I search China here, oops, that's not China. There we go. Says Japan renounces all special rights and interests in China, including all benefits and privileges resulting from the provisions of the final protocol signed at Peking on September 7th, 1901. So basically, again, that means anything that Japan used to occupy in China, that they gave it back after this treaty, is still a part of Japan. Isn't that crazy? So all you guys who want to go to, get out of China, just go claim your citizenship in Japan right now. And also it begs the question, because when Japan invaded China, it was the Republic of China, aka the KMT, was in power, the government that later went to Taiwan, right? So if you are to say that when Japan gave things back to China, which China are we really talking about? Because now I think either those people in Manchuria or in Taiwan should claim themselves as as the real Chinese people, or they can claim themselves as Taiwanese people, or they can claim themselves as Japanese people. Like myself, I chose to say I'm Japanese now, so I'm gonna learn some Japanese, and hopefully I can go back to my motherland one day, because that's where I was born. Unfortunately, the CCP rejected my entire nationality. So that's the actual article. The interesting thing is there's also some other arguments to be made. For example, China can no longer argue the post-war order from the state of the world against Japan, right? Simply because, they always claim that the idea of Japan losing the Second World War means that they have no rights to do certain things, blah, 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 blah. Even though Japan is an ally of the United States now, because they lost the Second World War, they should forever be paying reparations. Well, it turns out China doesn't even want that anymore, because the San Francisco Treaty says that Japan should be paying back reparation to those countries that where the tragedies occurred in those countries that Imperial Japan had invaded. And the second question is, who is the real China, like I mentioned? Because you now have a succession problem, right? Japan, in those documents, recognized that the places that it obtained from China needs to go back. So if they go back to the real China, which is the Republic of China, then that means Taiwan can claim the lands of Manchuria as part of their own, because, the one China policy. And also, a lot of the things like the 1945 to 1951 borders collapse into pre-war chaos a lot of the borders that were once either in the situations of with China, with Japan, or with Russia, that all is canceled. So now there should be a three-country war over their border sovereignty immediately, because I guess you got to go back in history. All of these things are invalid, and also it calls into the question of which I think is fundamentally the real issue here, which is who should actually benefit from everything that Japan gave up. Is it Taiwan, KMT, who actually fought the war against the Japanese occupation, or is it the CCP who sat in the countryside and did nothing? If we are to say that the real credit goes to the KMT, then we should actually cancel the legitimacy of the CCP in its entirety over the rule of China, because it never ruled China by the measures that it is trying to impose legally, or as it tries to do it legally. China always does this legal warfare, right? They use legality to try to argue with claims, even though they're the ones who violated the rules to begin with, like the South China Sea or over Taiwan. So one thing is for sure, Taiwan is not a part of mainland China. It's not part of the People's Republic of China. Taiwan is actually China, the real China. If that makes sense. Okay, so that's not the only thing going on, because recently Trump signed a new law called the Taiwan Assurance Implementation Act. And this essentially just updates the existing one that was signed under Biden, which is an act that ensures that every 5 years, the State Department has to review the interactions with Taiwan, which is another step. Now, it's good. It's not going to be formally recognizing Taiwan soon, but it's a step to normalizing the relationship there, which I think is a great one. But also, if you really think about what this does, is it cancels all the lies that they say that the U.S. is going to abandon Taiwan. It's not going to abandon Taiwan. Okay, that's simply not true. If anything, we think that there's going to be more improvements in the relationship. Okay, now this is another one that's being propagandized. Excuse me. Apparently, Prime Minister of Japan, Sanae Takaichi, says that there will be no change whatsoever in Japan's position on Taiwan. And this is based on the 1972 Japan-China joint communique that says, quote, Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. Again, this is the other argument, right? The official position of Japan for Taiwan versus what the official position is in currently is the policy towards Taiwan. They're two different things. Conceptually, they're completely different things. This 1972 China-Japan joint communique is simply the document that says, yes, a version of China, Taiwan is a part of that. Is it the Republic of China? Because, by the way, the CCP just invalidated the San Francisco Treaty, right? Which means that they don't really know, or nobody really knows what the real China is, who the real China is. So by that interpretation, we can argue that the 1972 Japan-China joint communique is actually the Republic of China, not the People's Republic of China, which is the CCP. So the Republic of China is Taiwan. So yes, Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory because Taiwan is China. So this is basically the official position of Japan, right? To say that there is essentially, there's a China. Again, we don't know which China, but it is part of Taiwan is part of that China. Okay, so we could interpret it today as the Republic of China. But the U.S. policy, for example, with the one China policy, it just says that there's one China. It doesn't say anything about that there's one China and is part of Taiwan is part of China. It just says there's one China. We recognize that there's one China, right? Because Taiwan is called Taiwan. It's not called China. So we just have to understand that the official position of the Japanese Prime Minister and the official position of the Japanese policy is two different things, right? The policy towards Taiwan and the official position of Japan, they're very different. And obviously, it is the policy that matters more. And so far, she has not shown that she's kneeling down or backing out from supporting Taiwan. So once again, thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu. Thanks for watching. I am now Japan insider. I am Chinese descendants of Japanese. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm joking, obviously, but still, it shows you how ridiculous their whole idea really is, trying to invalidate some documents to prove that they're right. They're not. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.